everyone. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you could please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can always follow us there. Every like and share and subscribe can help our channel to be seen by many more Stargate fans. So we really appreciate it. And then we also have all of our socials listed up on the screen right now if you wish to follow us there. Okay, thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Bye. And to all the Stargate fans out there, we would love to hear from you and chat with you on our show. So if you're interested in doing that, please reach out to us via any of our social media platforms or email.
We have reached a very special point in our podcasting career in that we've now got 100 subscribers on YouTube, and which Emily celebrated by making a really funny post, which maybe we'll get to a little bit later in the episode. But for now, we thought it would be really cool to explore last week, or maybe it was last week, correct? It was last week we posed a question to our fans and listeners and other Stargate interested peeps, what you would think, like which Goa'uld, I mean, and I guess it kind of morphed into other characters, but it started, which Goa'uld do you think would have the most unhinged TikTok? And we shared our thoughts on our podcast and invited others to share their thoughts. And we actually got some really, really amazing suggestions in the comments. And so we thought we would actually talk about some of these, say what we think, and also just give some of you amazing Stargate fans credit for being so creative and coming up with such cool ideas.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to maybe start with the one that you thought was particularly amusing, or...
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. One that really stood out to me, I think, was one of the first few people that had initially replied to this on TikTok, and their username is Lord Then.
Mm-hmm.
And they started posting I'll just read it. I thought it was and I was trying to find because I think they had posted multiple, so it was quite funny. But so they put cooking with you, balls out, sporting updates with ball, Ra's fashion, rah, afterlife with Anubis, preparing for your retirement. And I was just like, oh my God, this is too amazing. And then he kept going because we were just like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I don't know if he's saying that Ra is okay, my little Raz. Today we're going to show you how to have your child slaves do your eyeshadow so it just pops. OMG. I'm gonna look so blazing later when I flash my eyes doing God stuff.
Yes. The raw makeup.
And then he had
tutorial.
another one, but I don't know if you want, do you see that? See that
Yeah.
comment? I don't know if you want to read the other one then that he also had there, because it was funny.
You. Well, come to cook with you. Dat me, you. Today we cook my miso soup, yuso soup. Start with and then you will have his first prime prove himself by showing you how to cook my yuso soup. So would that have little bits of Goa'uld in it? I mean, what would be in a Goa'uld miso soup? You know?
Oh, good question. I kind of imagine for some reason when you asked that, what the first thing that came to mind was an episode of Stargate, and I don't even remember what episode this was, and I can't remember fully which members of SG-1 this was that did this, but they broke open a thing that had a bunch of little symbiotes that weren't were little baby symbiotes, or however you would describe it. I don't know how you describe it. Young ones, and that were in this thing that they broke open. So for some reason I could imagine maybe it's mixed with the young symbiotes that they're in little pieces, and that's part of their
usage.
Yeah,
and I mean in the summit they were definitely eating Goa'uld, so it's possible. But it's funny because of these, I think the weirdest one would be Afterlife with Anubis, preparing for your retirement. Because I can just imagine it would be extremely hilarious to have Anubis like with his robe, and his hood and looking all menacing, and then, his like his face, and you think it's going to be really dramatic. Like you expect that it's going to be really dramatic, but he just comes on and very deadpan, and he's like, "And today I'm going to talk to you about Roth IRAs and like, how to prepare for your, like, and just like telling you really, really boring. Like I imagine it somehow being really, really boring, like financial advice. Like you're like all geared up for it to be like, he's going to tell you something really dramatic and like dark, but he's just has this boring like deadpan voice talking about like interest and compounding interest, and you're just like, uh.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I mean that's how I mean I would love to know what other people would think about this kind of a TikTok, if it would be like this or not, but this is how, like, when I read that, that's exactly how I imagined it.
Yeah.
um, and with Ball, I actually, this doesn't seem so like out of the realm of possibility, because somehow I do imagine that Ball would be like a more kind of sporty kind of dude. And
Mhm.
somehow I know, because it says balls out, it seems like, he's going to be playing golf or basketball or something, and I know that they've had golf,
Yeah.
but like, hear me out. Imagine Ball if he were like a figure skater and having one of those like figure skating TikToks where they have, the music, and then they come out and they have their costume, and then they show some cool like tricks and fancy stuff.
I mean, I could see it. Like, I could totally see it. I mean, clearly he was in my weird video, so as a figure skater.
See, so I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm a little bit partial to that because it's the sport I follow, but I actually could really imagine this, and
I
maybe,
could.
and like
Yeah, like
with a bit of like, seriousness about it, like not one of those, like goofy ones or funny one. Like he has takes himself very seriously, and you have like a really, like the camera that follows them, and he does these very dramatic routines where, like his face is very serious, and
yeah, and then if he wants to really have like a big production, that's when then he brings out the clones, and the clones all skate around him and have very particular formations that they do. And
yeah,
but then like they all get irritated at each other because they want to be the one, they want to be the only one, and then it's just a disaster because then they all start trying to like attack each other on ice, so it ends up being an attacking on ice show.
I mean that's actually kind of amazing because, I mean, of course, like there's one person in the world that's ever had a solo ice show, Yuzuru Hanyu, right? But Ball could really do it with all his clones. He could not just have a TikTok, but have a whole ice show just himself. And they would absolutely do that. They would not be satisfied to be, just parts of the synchro team. It's like the people in a
Yeah.
choir, that they're not okay with, blending in. They have to like belt their solo, but it's like all the balls would be like that.
Is there anyone in figure skating that you think like would want to have a show of just themselves?
I mean, yes, I mean, Yuzuru Hanyu, yes, 100%.
But like,
Because
I mean, like making clones of themselves. Like, do you think like anyone specifically would like want to just make clones of themselves and just have it be themselves?
oh man, I never thought about it. Um, oh my gosh.
I definitely think Elia.
Okay, yeah. Like 100 backflips. Like,
Like, I just feel like because of like his comments, for those that don't know, he says some funny comments sometimes at like events, and like when he like was thanking himself, like that just seems like something Ball would do. He'd thank
yeah, that's
himself.
true. That's true. And actually, I mean, maybe when we get to the Goa'uld fashion, I mean, there is some fashion consistencies there. But I think that would probably be the one thing where I could see there be varying a similarity between a Ball solo ice show and and Elia solar ice shows, is probably the only situation in which you would see like multiple quad axles at the same time, because Ball would be able to do it. And he would have all of his clones doing it, right? So it's probably the chance of a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But
That's funny.
maybe they can do a duet ice show and see who can jump more
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, that would be amazing. That'd be amazing. And at the end, then Elia would be like taken over by a symbiote. He would become a Goa'uld.
And then he can make a like septuple axle.
Yeah.
That would be something. That's like the real doping is symbiotes. You could train forever,
Yes.
right? Like, so
Yes.
actually the sporting thing with Ball, it's not so crazy because
Yeah.
really, I mean, if you're an athlete, if the Tok'ra were a real thing and I would totally be a Tok'ra athlete.
Yeah.
What are some other funny ones? This one I thought it's a new addition, but I actually thought this could be kind of interesting and I can definitely visualize it. Ask Nirti. She answers callers' medical questions.
I
And this
thought that was really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, this is by Miss Rec. I don't know how to pronounce it. I apologize for any users if I'm mispronouncing your username. But somehow I can really imagine this. And I mean, maybe you had to tell me what you imagine, and maybe I'm also going a little bit too much to the what is actually stranger than how it would really be. But I somehow imagine that if Nirti was on one of these like ask so and so hotlines where she answers the medical questions, that she would answer all the questions and it would actually be, but she's wearing her like Goa'uld costume, right? So it's like actually this really big conflict because she's in this Goa'uld costume. She has her Goa'uld thing, and then somebody calls and asks a medical question, and she completely changes and is like totally normal to say, yes, well, do you have a headache? And can you stand up? If you twist this way, what do you feel? And it's like totally normal. I don't know how you imagine it though.
Oh my gosh. I could see that. Yeah, that does make sense. I could totally see that. It's a tricky one because I think like there's a part of me that feels like she would be trying to like manipulate her audience, like so that she could in some way use it to her advantage, like and have like an experiment somehow somehow
Yes.
with like her human subjects through
Oh,
TikTok, you
yes,
know?
that's such a good point. You're right. Yeah, she would probably actually use it for, even if she did it that it seemed good, then she would be brought out later as
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could I
So
could
I
see
could
that.
see like a combination of both, like where she would have that vibe, but maybe there was like a more of like a unsettling reason for it.
Yes, yes, totally, totally. So yeah, so that's actually also a pretty funny one. Um a lot of people said Hathor would have a fashion tutorial or thirst traps, and I think that's one of the ones I said. Um,
Yeah.
but I thought it was interesting how many people alluded to many different Goa'uld having either get ready with me's, like in terms of like a fashion things or makeup. I know I like the Raw makeup, the one that we discussed earlier, because I think actually Raw had some of the most dramatic, and maybe because it's
Yeah.
from the movie, it was one of the first ones. But I think as Goa'uld go, he had some of the most dramatic makeup, and
Hmm.
so that makes sense. I think that would be kind of cool. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know.
And I
Were
think
there were there any others that kind of like stuck out to you as, yeah, I would really love to watch that TikTok?
there was like all of them were so good to be honest. Like
Yes.
I think a lot of people were kind of repeating what each other said where they were agreeing about Ball. Um a lot of people seemed to be in agreement that like he would have a TikTok. I don't know how to pronounce it. The one that I had mentioned that would have the mukbang one, the Nerus, is that how you pronounce his
Yes.
name?
Yes, Nerus.
Some people were agreeing with that. Some said that they would be into like watching that. Uh, and a lot of people agreed about Ball. So I can't seem to find. I swear there was other ones.
Here's an interesting one about ball that I think is a bit unique compared to all other balls, because a lot of people said ball as fashion influencer or thirst traps, but someone OMFG Blondie said ball would have a pretty bog standard financial influencer account selling courses on how to get rich. Lord Zapakna, on the other hand, dot dot dot. And I actually, that one, I think I could really see this, especially if you think of Ball in like kind of season 9, 10 Ball, where sometimes they're showing him on Earth and he is kind of almost looks like a finance bro, like in his like the way he's dressed, and he's in this fancy like apartment and he's already kind of into the
Yeah.
business world. So that I could actually see and being really, really like typical about it. But I'm really curious what they mean by Lord Supakna on the other hand. Like, would he have an unhinged financial account? Like, would he be a failed like MLM marketer? like, like trying to sell Herbalife or something and just sucking really bad? It's like
I find it so funny.
yeah, like I felt so terrible until I tried, like Herbalife or natural protein powder or something, and like trying to sell it, but he has no charisma, so nobody buys the product, and he has like 3 followers or something. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, what I think is funny is like it's interesting to think about because it's like, most, if not all, Goa'ulds are very, very arrogant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, especially with Zapakna, like, he's incredibly arrogant. So it's like, then there's the part of me that feels like maybe he would actually do really well because like he has so much belief in himself that like maybe like it'd be one of those cases of like, like, I don't know, just like if you think about famous people, for example, like sometimes people are quite arrogant, but many people love them, like because they're so like, I don't know, self-assured or whatever, and it kind of attracts people. So I could also see it being a thing where like, I don't know what he would do, but I think it's also a really funny thought of thinking of them, how they are like in their atmosphere, where they're used to having all this control and overconfidence and all this stuff, but then like imagining them on TikTok assuming that they're gonna like be amazing and then like they just like are terrible at it. So I could see both sides. Like I think that's really funny actually, like to imagine him just like going and there's so much like arrogance, but then just like boom, it's like not working.
I mean, it's also really funny when you think about it, because the fact that it was so easy for people to think of Goa'uld having TikToks makes you kind of question, like, does that make you reflect a little bit on like what it means to have a TikTok account because of the
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
mean, because let's flip this for a second. Could you imagine SG1 or the Atlantis team having TikTok accounts? Do you think it would be so easy to imagine this?
Oh, yes and no. It's like there's a part of me that feels like some of them just would not be bothered with it, right? Because there isn't, it's like, I think when you think of like a Goa'uld and you think of kind of like that self-absorbed kind of aspect of them, that's what makes it like really easy, I think, to think of like having like a TikTok account. And I don't mean that in disrespect to those of us that have a TikTok account or YouTube or whatever, but it's just like there's an element of like with Goa'uld, like they're wanting to like be seen. Like whereas like, like I think for like SG1 um or even Atlantis, I mean, I don't know. There's parts of me that could see it. Like I could see like I don't know, like I could see Taylor. Like I don't know why, like I could imagine Taylor and I think last time I teamed them up before too, but like Taylor with another person, I could imagine like Taylor and Keller or something, and having it be like some kind of like silly like TikTok account, or I could imagine Ronan like maybe like showing off his like fighting abilities or something, but like barely saying any words most of the time.
You know what I could,
Like,
imagine Ronan doing? because he has such good social awareness. I could totally see him having one of those accounts where he gets on and he tells girls what guys not to date. Like,
Oh
ladies,
my
if your
gosh.
man does these three things, and then he like points, don't date him. You know, if he does these three things, he's a keeper. You know, like I could imagine that. I could totally imagine that.
That's amazing. Yes. And I think with like SG1, definitely Vala,
Hmm.
like she would definitely, I could definitely imagine her. But then, like, you think of her character and you think of like, she is a little self-absorbed, similar to a Goa'uld. So maybe that, so it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Like, can you imagine like Carter or anyone like doing a TikTok?
I mean, this is how I kind of think. I think TikTok or something would come just so naturally to a Goa'uld. And I think that like Carter or Daniel, they could do a TikTok, you know, where they're talking about science or archaeology. But I feel like it would require a lot of effort on their part to not look awkward. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to think, like for some reason when I imagine Carter doing a TikTok, I am reminded of this time when she had to do the interview for the
Yeah.
documentary, and she was like so awkward, and she was sitting there and she's like, hi.
Yeah.
And actually kind of makes you like want like Amanda Tapping to make a TikTok of Sam Carter, because I feel like it would be hilarious, like absolutely
Yes.
hilarious, absolutely gold. It would be brilliant. And I think it could be so cool if it was like, you know, just a little bit of this like Carter awkwardness, you know, but like that actually the TikTok, it's really interesting. The scientific concepts are so interesting. And I think also sometimes that makes people really endearing,
Yeah.
you know, if they have that little level of, you know, they're not quite so natural and whereas like Goa'uld, they're supernatural and they can just, you know, they will just BS their way through whatever topic they're talking.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it would also be really funny, you know, like the version of Carter where it's like she wasn't in SG1 and she was
Oh
her nerdy
yes.
self. That would be like, I would love that. Or I would also love like Belcher and Coombs.
Yeah, yeah, totally. They would be hilarious. I think everybody would
Because I
laugh.
just love those two so much. And I especially love I think it's Belger or is it Coombs? Which one is it? The one that likes Carter.
That's Felger. I think Coombs is the one
Yeah.
with the cat.
Yeah. Okay. Coombs is the one with the cat?
Yes.
Okay. Because he's the one you see less of, right?
Hmm. Felger's
Yeah.
kind of like the main one that keeps getting them in trouble.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know. I just love
here's a
Felger. So
question. If you and I join an SG team, which one of us would be Felger and which one of us would be Coombs?
I kind of feel like I would want to be Felger, but I think I would maybe be Coombs. I don't know. Like how do we pick this? Like, I don't know.
So Felger is like the one that is getting us into trouble, like the one that is kind of the one that instigates everything. And
That
Coombs,
would be you.
okay, so I would, and wait a second, like it feels like somehow that would be middle school and high school all over again. I get us into trouble because I have a crush on or some kind of like weird thing of some random person.
Yes.
Like, so okay, maybe you're right. And you know, Coombs has a cat, you know, and he
Yeah.
wants to
I
live
have
a
a
peace,
cat, so you know.
he wants to live a peaceful life with his cat and maybe not be dragged into this weird Jaffa situations.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's funny.
Okay, but yeah, yeah. So, um, but yeah, I thought this was a really interesting experience, and it was really cool to hear everybody's idea. Like that was my
Yeah.
favorite part because everyone had such really interesting ideas about
Yeah.
this, and it makes me
Yeah.
think like there are probably so many more Stargate related topics like this where people would be very creative and
Yeah. And I was honestly surprised too. Like I didn't expect so many people to comment. Like
mhm.
I didn't think about it really, but like I didn't like expect so many people to be so into like thinking up their ideas. So it was really fun to be able to like read all the comments and like all these ideas that like I never would have thought of. It was just like hilarious. So yeah.
Yeah. So yes, thank you all for that engagement. We love it. And of
Yeah.
course, the other thing that happened is that we hit 100 subscribers, which we're very grateful for
On YouTube. Yep.
on YouTube. So thank you to everyone for subscribing to our YouTube and also for subscribing in all of our other channels, TikTok, Insta, Spotify. We really appreciate it. And we'll continue to make these fun things when as we reach more milestones. But of course, the Emily made this really goofy mashup that is somehow a crossover of two fandoms that we kind of know that are very obscure. Okay. Stargate, which is, I mean, we're not a super niche fandom, but I think we're maybe of the sci-fi shows a little bit more niche and very special. I have to say, it's a very special fandom community, and figure skating. And I'm going somewhere with this, so just trust me. And of course, what Emily did was she basically took some of our favorite figure skaters and kind of photoshopped them with Stargate characters. And so if you know anything about figure skating, you probably can figure out who some of them are. If not, you probably don't. And we're just questioning why these Stargate characters were dressed the way that they were. Which also brings me to something we want to talk about in this special episode, which is something I've actually wanted to talk about for a while. But I started thinking about it more after we got a lot of these TikTok responses because so many people mentioned fashion and makeup. And so we actually have some pictures and went over some fashion specifically of bad guys, especially Goa'uld, because there's just so many of them and their fashion is so uncanny. But I think there's some other bad guys. I think I have some Wraith and other things that we can also talk about their costumes. But we thought we'd maybe talk about some of their fashion and what we think about that. So
Yes.
I mean, maybe we'll start with the absolute OG. And Emily, you posted this in our document so that we could look at this. And this is the first ever Goa'uld that kind of was there in the movie and set the tone for pretty much the fashion of every other Goa'uld that came, because it established Goa'uld as this kind of very flashy, glamorous, and that is Ra. And
do you want me to share it or do you want to share? I have the share settings open, so
okay, yeah, that's great. You can share so that we can all look at Ra.
Hold on one second. I just got to open it up.
Here's my question for you, Emily. Did you ever see the original movie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not that I can remember.
I mean, I've seen the movie a very, very, very long time ago. But I don't, like, I have to say I've rewatched the series much more. But of course, Ra was the first. It was kind of, I guess they probably considered him the only Goa'uld at this time because it wasn't really established, this whole situation of system lords. But as you can see, Ra has a very elaborate dress, very elaborate hair. And I think, I mean, I would say, well, he's not the most outlandish looking Goa'uld. I think this particular example set the tone for Goa'uld to come. And so, for example, Apophis, who I think there should be a picture of in the board I shared with you, a couple pictures of Apophis actually that maybe we can.
Do you want me to go to him?
Yeah, sure. That we can look at. Because he was kind of the first one that appeared in the show, but I feel like his fashion was really influenced by Ra. And of course, it's influenced by this Egyptian culture that they were kind of drawing all their allure from. But I have to say that I think his was a bit more elaborate and a bit more flashy. And I think this kind of, to me, the Apophis sort of fashion and attitude cemented the Goa'uld more as these kind of more narcissistic, flashy beings. Whereas I think Ra was a little bit more, I mean, not like Apophis isn't intimidating, but I think Ra was a little bit more overtly intimidating in a non-goofy way. And I think, you know, O'Neill's always making fun of the Goa'uld for being overdressed and flashy. And I think Apophis really took what Ra's kind of vibe and pushed it to this level of, you know, over showiness. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is very similar to, like, I do see how it gets like the same kind of vibe from the other one we were looking at. It's the hat.
Yeah. No,
It's
for sure.
almost like it has these weird big like ears on each side that are almost like elephants or like I don't know why it reminds me of an elephant.
No, I
And
didn't
it
notice
just
that.
yeah,
But you know what,
I
what I
can
think,
hear you.
I mean, I have to say, I know Raw had a little bit of makeup on, but I feel like Apophis usually went to the next level with his makeup. He had a lot more eyeliner and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think that they made with this dress and this kind of look to him, they really put forward more the Goa'uld as this kind of flashy, um, egocentric beings. And I mean, there should be the two that were kind of associated with Apophis is Amonet, which is actually Sharae, and Skara. And so maybe we can look at their outfits. Actually, I mean, I really like her dress. I think it's actually pretty.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah, and I think for somehow for gold, it's quite understated, I think. I know there's a lot of gold, but
Yeah.
it compared to say Apophis, I feel like there's a little bit where it's dialed back a little bit. It's kind of cleverly placed ornamentation.
Yeah.
I think Skara is kind
Yeah.
of the opposite. If you go to Skara, like Skara is maybe a little bit more elaborate than Amonet, and maybe even a bit more elaborate than Apophis, just not so over the top with how much gold, but he has a lot of ornamentation. But
You kind of yeah.
he kind of
Sorry, go
reminds you
ahead.
of what? No, I was gonna say, like, I think you can kind of get the same, like the sense that they're giving them this very particular vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very kind of like shine like everything's very like shiny and gold, like
Yeah.
um
What were you gonna say?
expensive, I guess, kind of like appearance
Yes.
type of thing,
Yes.
showing off their worth kind of stuff. But what it reminds me of is like the pattern reminds me of that kid's book with the fish, where it has like the shiny scales.
I can never unsee that. Thank you.
Like it's like that about the fish that's different from all the other fish, and it's like that has little shiny scales and it learns to like accept itself or whatever, and the other
Yes.
fish like make fun of it and
Well,
yeah.
maybe that's Skara's journey. I mean, his dad is Apophis. I mean, imagine having Apophis as your dad and you have to make your way in the world against like this guy with this big golden thing and being all
Yeah.
flashy and you know,
I
getting
kind of like his hair too. Like how
yes.
like that he has like that stuff like swirled around it. That looks really cool, I think. Um, I think hair is always interesting with all of these like guys. Or if we go back to I'm saying Share, but I forget the name of
I
the
know it's Amonet, but yeah, it's Sharae.
Amonet. Like all like these headpieces and stuff, or like the way they have their hair. It's a lot of times quite unique, especially I think it's like on the older episodes. I think they tend to like have
Mhm.
more of like the headpieces and the hair is a certain way, like whereas then when you go later on, like
Well,
to
it's
other
interesting to
characters, it's not quite as much.
yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to compare with Ball. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's quite a few different versions of Ball that I have, but if you just find one, um, I think
Like there.
this is really interesting because this is where I think you can look how important the fashion of the Goa'uld actually was to what their how they were being portrayed in the show in terms of their, their overall like baddiness. And I think
Yeah.
with Amonet and Skara and Apophis, there was this sort of over the top flashiness and this sort of like narcissistic behavior that O'Neill of course made fun of. And I mean, part of this was linked to the mythology they came from, but of course they did pick very ornate and expensive looking versions of
Mm-hmm.
I guess what people in 1997 thought Egyptians would wear in mythology. Like, so I think
Yeah.
it's I mean, of course we have to assume this is the interpretation of people at this time. Um, but they did take a very, very ornate version. They weren't taking, what an average person living in ancient Egypt would wear as kind of the dress of the Goa'uld, or even something just a little bit modified. I actually think Charez, even with the headdress and all of the gold, it's like almost the least expensive looking one, despite being
Yeah.
still really expensive looking. But I think it's interesting because if you look at Ball, I mean, he doesn't really look expensive anymore. He just looks sleek. Like he has, like a lot of people did say, Ball having a fashion account was one of the suggestions in a TikTok, and I thought it was very interesting because actually
Hmm.
his fashion is very, it has a very different. It's almost like he's modeling in a fashion magazine with what he's wearing. He has cuts.
Yeah.
The cuts are more modern looking. They're kind of more like framing his like his face and his figure, and matching suits and things like that. So to me, it has more of a modern vibe.
Yeah. I love the jacket. Like I love like how this like the top of like this like I don't know what it is, if it's like a trench coat thingy or a jacket. I think because over here it looks like it's longer. I don't like that
Mhm.
it's long, but like over here, I think that's really cool looking. Like just like all of, like the it's just really like badass looking. I don't know. I really like
Yes.
it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you look at the early Goa'uld, and I mean, of course, they look badass, but there's also the slight little bit of humor about it because they're so over the top. But Ball, it's like he's so over the top, but in such a like a sleek, slithering way, And so I think that,
Yeah.
and I think his fashion really, like the fact that he's not covered in glitter, I think really actually helps that. It kind of makes him a
Yeah.
little bit more serious. And
Yeah.
I think that's also where we kind of come into, like we have, for example, Anubis, and there's quite a few pictures of Anubis, and we can see how far fashion has traveled in the Glow world because Anubis is this very intimidating hooded figure. And yeah, I mean, to me, what's interesting about this is that there's nothing like really flashy or overly fashion forward or something about Anubis. And I don't know how
Yeah.
you feel about that, but
I mean, I think maybe it makes sense because I think they kind of wanted him to kind of be like this mysterious, like unknown figure that's just kind of like this dark force in a sense. Like I always think of him as like a Darth Vader type.
yeah.
Like um it's just kind of like fitting in terms of maybe how they want you to feel about him,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Compared to uh some of the earlier on kind of gaudy you know gold and big displays of like a wealth kind of thing. It's more of like he's just kind of like it gives you like this dark kind of mysterious like danger vibe, like
Yeah.
you just don't know like what's going to happen because you feel like you can't actually, well, you can't really see them. It's just like a hooded thing,
Totally.
like so yeah.
It's also it's I it makes you want to like give props to the people that designed all the costumes for this because they
Oh yeah.
really, really captured the essence of the personalities of the Goa'uld and how the audience was supposed to feel about them. And I think
Yeah.
Anubis was kind of the first time. I mean, I know Ball was very menacing, and I think that's reflected in his dress that he's a little bit more sleek and a little bit more menacing, but he still had a little bit of the, Goa'uld arrogance and slight behavior that made him a little bit like make fun of a bull, for lack of a better word. But I think Anubis, it's just not possible. Like Anubis was very he was probably the most threatening one because he's half ascended. You kind of don't know that at the beginning, and he also is doing stuff that's worse than any other Goa'uld has, and he seems unbeatable. And at this point, like the stakes are really being raised, and I think it's very interesting that he has this sort like if he was again like I think very similar to Ball, if he had a bunch of gold on, it would just give a very different. You would somehow take his villainness a little bit less urgently as when he's wearing this black hooded, you can't see his face, there's really nothing to it. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And I think
Um,
what's remarkable about it to me is that he has this outfit after years and years of Stargate where they've already been making fun of how ridiculous the Ghoul will dress. Because at this point, O'Neill has openly made fun of it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
very true. I feel like with any of the Goa'uld females, like it's still always a little bit over the top in a sense. Like I don't think there's, at least not in this the pinned pictures that I'm seeing, like that seem, like it still seems to fall under that kind of a little bit more of the over the top like feel with like certain headdresses and things like that. Um, that I don't think there's an equivalent to ball, if that makes sense, like
No.
in terms of like their fashion. Um, like is that Nirati?
Yeah,
Like the
Nirti always
um
has a very elaborate headdress, or she's like I noticed that they're either kind of having a lot of like headdress and jewelry. They also tend to wear stuff that's more revealing. And so I think
yeah.
that's something, I mean, we don't have a picture, but also Osiris had kind of a very, I mean, it wasn't so flashy, but again, it's a very fancy, very, very like overly sexualized in a way. Like, and so I think they kind of, the Goa'uld women were really focused on having a very particular outward appearance.
Yeah, there was a few I had found. Hold on, I'll stop sharing this and I'll go to a different one for a second. There was a few I'd found that I don't even remember who they were. Because like I basically when we were looking around for different fashion and stuff, and you'd put together that awesome page that has like a bunch of it. And so then like I just like typed in like uh Goa'uld females because I was curious like what would show up. Um and there was some that were just like ones that I don't even remember. Like I don't know who Morrigan is. Like it says is a gold queen who hid her lineage from those around her. Hold on, I'll share the screen. Like hers is quite revealing. Hers is cool though. Like I mean all of them are cool. Like I think a lot of like the female gold like style is like really
Yeah, I
cool.
love it. It offers
Hold
a lot
on.
of opportunity for cosplay. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
also like I appreciate the kind of pick at having an enemy that would have a really creative fashion. Like I absolutely love that. So,
Her. I don't even
oh
remember
yeah.
seeing her.
I mean, she must have been in this episode where they have this like Goa'uld summit. Um, where all the Goa'uld came together. I think when Daniel was trying to kill them with the symbiote poison. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even you can't see the whole outfit, but I think even from the very top, you can just tell it's very much designed to be kind of revealing in a very particular way. But actually,
Yeah.
I love it. I love that there's like this top part that's kind of covering the neck, and it's almost giving
Yeah.
like a little bit of like collar vibes, but yet it's going over the shoulder, so it's a little bit more elegant, and then it's cut out. So I actually really like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, and I don't know if it's just because like she has red hair, like immediately I'm just like, yeah, I could see Alyssa like wearing that as like a cosplay. I
I
don't
mean,
know if it's
probably,
just
yeah, I
because she
totally would.
has like red hair. And so like, but I could totally see you fixing your hair like that and wearing that outfit. I guess Martin would have to wear the
That,
outfit of the guy behind
yes.
her.
Yeah, see, so that's interesting, right? Because, now this is also showing the fashion they picked for, like, I guess their human helpers and slaves that they had with them was also designed for a very particular purpose. So obviously they wanted to, I mean, one, probably force them to wear things that were more revealing because it's reflective of their power, but also they probably wanted their own eye candy, I guess.
Yeah, it gives very much like a sex slave vibe.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I was being a little bit like trying to go around it, but yeah, you got there. Yes, exactly. So I think that's interesting. Like, and I mean, I don't know. I also have a couple of pictures of Wraith in there, which brings me to this question because it's so easy to imagine Goa'uld TikTok, right? And to think about how cool this would be. But now if you imagine what would a Wraith TikTok be like? Like, can you, when you think of that, could you be like, oh man, there'd be some really cool Wraith TikTok?
Oh, I think there could be from Wraith like Todd. I
Yeah, good
think
point. Yeah.
Todd, maybe Michael, um, but just your average Wraith. I don't know if I could envision that, or even like a Wraith Queen. I'm not sure if I could envision them doing a TikTok. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because maybe like we can open the board of fashions with
Yeah.
some Wraith, because my initial thought was it's not so easy to think about a Wraith TikTok. I can't imagine them doing that because actually to me, Wraith don't have that same kind of like self-interested vibe that the Goa'uld do. They just don't. They have a much more, I mean, I almost want to say it's closer to Anubis, but actually kind of not really because Anubis is still he's over the top in his own way. But I think the Wraith have
Yeah.
a very different sort of motivation and a very different way they interact. And so I thought it's interesting to kind of look at like their fashion a little bit. Because yeah, I think you can see this is a Wraith Queen, correct? That you were just looking
That
at.
I just showed. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, this is a cool one. That's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. But it's very interesting to me because I think the Wraith are more kind of in line with Anubis in a way. I think the Queens still have things that are, they're a little bit more sort of figure flattering, but they're not anywhere near as sort of elaborate and revealing in a way as the Goa'uld women costumes, I think. I feel like,
Right. Yeah. A lot of it's very like long, usually long dresses that cover everything. The only thing that's ever usually shown is like shoulders or a
mhm.
little bit of cleavage.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
about it. Like here, it's like you see a lot of her shoulder. Like, yeah. So it's like a whole different vibe. But
And more like monochrome, like singular colors, less glitter. Um, it's very, I find that fascinating.
yeah. Who is that? That one right there. Was that one of the queens? Well, I
And
mean, I guess they're always must be a queen. If they're female, they're a queen, right? Um,
but wasn't this the under was this the one that they found underwater? I actually can't remember.
yeah, I think so. I
Okay.
think she's coming out of water right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so she's quite different looking from the rest, I think.
that's true. And I don't know if that was like intentional. I mean, this is also something interesting. Like, I don't know if that was intentional because wasn't she there for a very, very long time? And so I don't know if they were trying
Yeah.
to highlight that maybe her dress was, from a different era. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell. Is she wearing like a weird thing on her head there, or is that her hair?
I can't tell either, actually, because it looks almost
Yeah.
identical to the dress. But again, the dress that's also very like monochrome. Um, I think overall the
And then
Wraith had very monochrome clothing.
I don't remember seeing this one. What is this from?
That
Do
must
you
be
remember
cosplay.
seeing that?
That must be
Oh,
cosplay. That's gotta be cosplay. But that's a really good cosplay. That cosplay is so good that it looks like it should be from the show.
well, because like the makeup and everything,
It's
like,
amazing. It's truly amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
I think we should
Wow.
invite people to share their cosplay images, especially from baddies,
Yes,
because
please
since we're
do.
talking about this
Yeah.
fashion and how really amazing it is and how much work the designers put into this, I would love, 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 love to see other people's takes on some of these really, really cool costumes. So please, please, if
Yeah.
you're doing this, drop your socials in the comment or share a picture because I would love to see some people's interpretations on these
Yeah, that would
characters.
be so cool. Um, and then what do you like? One of my favorites, I think, is Adria. I know it's not race we're talking about, but like,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
don't
but
know.
it's
I've
still a
always
baddie.
really like, yeah, I've always like, it's like more simplified, I guess, but I don't know. I just always, I guess like maybe that's not like when you look at it up. close up, it's not necessarily the prettiest thing in the world, but I don't know. Something about her outfits always seemed kind of cool to me.
I think they had a way of looking elegant, um,
Yeah.
but they weren't quite as showy as the Goa'uld. I mean, to
Although
me,
this one right here looks a bit more showy.
yes, but it's like gold, and so yeah. I mean, I guess that is similar. It is showy in a way, but somehow I just don't feel like it's as gaudy as like.
Yeah.
But maybe that's. I mean, yeah, it's very. But I really like it, and it's kind of an elegant, like it's a very elegant cut, like how the sleeves are kind
Yeah.
of flowy, and the one that's kind of more showy is like a little bit less revealing. So I think it kind of like balances the
Yeah.
two. Like there's one that's kind of plainer, but it shows more of like her shoulders and everything, and then the showier one is kind of, it's long. It's more like a wraith dress, but glittery actually.
Yeah. And I think too, like, just with like the actress too, I think like the colors of the clothes that they use, like with her skin tone, look really, really pretty.
Definitely. Yeah. And then when with her with the special eyes, like I think they did a really
Yeah.
good job of bringing that out. Um
Yeah.
no, it was really good. But again, I think it
Um,
exemplifies her character a little bit because her character was kind of a leader and needed to pull people like to follow her and basically be in charge of everyone. And it was a certain role, but just not in the same way like some of these conniving Goa'ulds were.
yeah. What do you think of like you and the oh, I forget
Amaterasu.
her name. Yeah, like what do you think of their outfits? I guess this doesn't
I
really show his outfit, it just shows his shoulders, but
Yeah, maybe we have to find a picture, but I to me like you is always one of my favorite Goa'uld in
mhm.
general. But I think both of those I feel like they're a little bit less, they went more with kind of a traditional um dress for both of them, I think. I mean, a
Yeah.
little bit you can see like there's a little bit kind of leather, so there's a little like just a touch of this kind of Goa'uld dynamic there, but it's a bit more
Yeah.
understated. And to me, I really like both of their outfits.
Yeah, same.
And I think
What is her name again?
Amaterasu.
Amaterasu. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I've always really liked her costume. I think it's pretty, and I like how like they have her like eyeshadow and stuff matching with
oh
it. It's
yeah,
pretty.
for sure, for sure. But I mean, it's interesting because neither of them were really necessarily over the top. Their personas were very different. Like I actually really,
Yeah.
like again, I know he was there more than Amaterasu. He was actually interacting with him a lot, but I always loved Lord Yu. Um,
Yeah.
I thought he was kind of a really interesting addition, and then that they kind of made him like have like almost that he was kind of like to show what happens when a Goa'uld is like getting extremely old. I think was it kind of showed this almost like not humanness, but it showed a vulnerability.
Yeah, I was
And
kind of like sad too, like that like they didn't have more of his character. Sorry, I think I cut
yeah,
you
me
off.
too.
I keep doing that
Yeah, no,
today.
no, that's all
Sorry.
I meant. That's all I was gonna say. But yeah, I appreciate that it showed some like little bit of Goa'uld vulnerability there, and yeah,
Yeah.
kind of to tie it back because I think you made this really goofy post, but I'm not sure if you realized at the time that you highlighted something so important about the show, which was what the impact the costumes had on the villains and their perception. And so,
Oh.
and so I think to see Ball dressed as Ball versus Ball dressed as, Dennis Facilius gives a very different, even though his face is the same and his expression is the same, it gives a very different vibe and like perception of the character. And so I think you actually highlighted something very important.
Oh gosh, that's funny. That's a good point.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can say the same. Well, no, no, no. Actually, with Teal'c, I was about to say with O'Neill, I think what you captured with him was exactly the essence of O'Neill. So I don't actually think like there was any difference of how you perceived O'Neill. Like how O'Neill was shown was like 100% how O'Neill is, and it's also why I love O'Neill. We love big kids, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
O'Neill is the best. Um, but I think the Teal'c one, you're right, it was also very different because Teal'c dressed as a giant panda was pretty funny. and not Tilk's seriousness at all. But I think Tilk, you know what? I think Tilk would do it because I think like he would find it funny, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or kind of like when like in like one of the episodes when he's like it's the funny episode where he's like looks like a Tin Man and stuff. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I think he could pull it off. But I thought the ball one was extremely remarkable in that regard because Ball dressed in a figure skating outfit, and that particular figure skating outfit was super extremely non-threatening, like not threatening at all. And I thought it was funny because yeah,
It's really funny. Um, but I guess what one thing before we go, we never did mention, I think one of your favorites, I think it's one of your favorites that you've never, that for some reason we never mentioned yet was Hathor.
oh yeah, yeah, no, I think we mentioned it very briefly, but I didn't really go into detail about the costume. But yes, Hathor is one of my favorites in terms of the style. Just because I really, I mean, again, I think I'm gonna find a picture of Hathor, but I think it's again falling more
Is that
into,
Hathor, right? At the
yeah, it's
corner?
falling more into, I mean, there's a couple different Hathor costumes. I think there's this one, there's also the one where she kind of has her stomach. Um, but I think it's falling more into the early sort of Goa'uld of like Apophis and Skara. Um, but I always really appreciated her style as well. And I mean, I think
Yeah.
the somehow with her coloring, I think the gold actually suits really nicely.
Hmm.
And then they kind of made her character like more like seductive intentionally, like that was part of the character persona. So I thought the costumes really fitting for that as well. Because it wasn't just that it was kind of revealing, it was like it was supposed to be like that because she was kind of this Goa'uld that was intentionally using that as a way to manipulate people or to. So I always really loved Hathor's costumes.
Yeah, totally. And again, I don't know if it's just because of the red hair, but then I could totally imagine you dressing up like her.
I need to get it. Like someday I'll have all these cosplays, and I would totally love to. That's I definitely think I would cosplay most as a Goa'uld if I
If
was.
I were to dress up as a gold, who do you think I should be?
Ooh, that's a good question because somehow I imagine you a lot as a Wraith. Like I can just see
Yeah.
you cosplay as Wraith. But
Yeah.
let's
I mean,
pretend.
I would love, 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 love to be a Wraith.
I
But I'm
think.
trying to think like if I were to choose maybe like
Oh,
Sharae's like gold, like or
oh yeah, because
um
for some reason what pops in my head is Osiris. Um, which I
I'm trying to
mentioned
remember which one
briefly, but
that one
I
is
don't
again.
think we have a picture. But Osiris was the one that the host was Sarah, and she was dating Daniel. Um,
Uh
and she kind of had like long curly hair. She was tall, but I could see you wearing that. It was a little bit like of more. I mean, for lack of a better word, the dress was a little bit more feminine than some of the
uh
Goa'uld, where it's kind of more hypersexual. But it was a
yeah.
very like kind of feminine, flowy, but yet
Oh
it's.
yeah, I see it. Yep.
I
Okay.
mean, it's still like kind of revealing, and but in a very different way. And I
Yeah.
could see you cosplaying as this for sure.
Yeah, because I definitely think I wouldn't while the outfits are amazing, like the ones that are more revealing, I definitely wouldn't be comfortable wearing that. Like you would totally be down for wearing that. I think those are some of my favorite outfits, but I would never be comfortable wearing that. No way. But I mean some of them aren't like super revealing that I'd probably be okay with, but like um yeah, anywhere like the chest is like massively revealed, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable with that kind of thing. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not
Yeah, there you
awkward.
go. Now we have cosplay goals, and yeah, we invite all of you. Like again, if you're a cosplayer, definitely share. Who would you cosplay as, and whose fashion do you like love? Who do you think has the best fashion as a Goa'uld? And I'd be
Yeah.
curious to see how many people repeat this because I have a feeling there's a couple that everybody's going to say. Because when I hear fashion and Goa'uld, there's kind of one name that pops into my head, and I think it pops into everyone's.
Yeah, and then we can always if people give us permission, we can always even share images of their cosplays like on
Yes,
maybe the next
definitely.
episode or something or on social media, that kind of thing. So Yeah.
Definitely.